So now we're going to talk about the skull. The first thing that we need to know is that the skull is also called the cranium. So skull equals cranium, and cranium means a box made out of bones. And it's called so because it contains the brain, and there are other organs also which are found in the skull. So if we draw the skull, so if the skull looks something like this, we'll see that it's made out of bones, and the bones are not joined together by joints. They are joined by something called sutures. So the ends of the bones are serrated like that. They have a zigzag shape, like this. So these bones are joined together very securely and very firmly, and they contain the brain and the sensory organs of the face. So there are two parts of the skull that we can differentiate. The first part is the part that contains the brain, because the nature of the brain is different as an organ because it's made out of neurons. So it's a neural organ. So the part which contains the brain, which is this part, this is called the neurocranium. Neurocranium. So this part is called the neurocranium. And we have this other part which contains the eye, the nose, the tongue, and the contents of the mouth and so on. This part is called the viscerocranium. It's called the viscerocranium because viscero comes from the word viscera, which means organs. So these are the two parts of the skull. We have the neurocranium and the viscerocranium. Now, we can name some bones of the skull. We are not going to talk about this in detail, but for example, this bone, this big one on this side, this is called parietal bone. For example, this bone on the side, this big bone, is called the parietal bone. We have this one here. This is called a temporal bone. Temporal bone. This one is occipital because it lies just behind the occipital part of the brain, which processes the visual information that are received by the eye. We have this bone here. This is called the sphenoid bone. Also this one here, this small part here, the nasal bone. This one here behind the eye is called the lacrimal bone, and so on. And the bones which form the part of the neurocranium, they sum up to 8 from both sides. There is a common bone here and there, the occipital bone, and this one on the front, which is called the frontal bone. So this one is frontal. They are common, so they are found in the middle, and the other bones are found on the right and on the left with the same names. Also, here we have the upper jaw, which is called the maxilla. So this is the maxilla here, and the lower jaw is called the mandible. So this is a quick review of the skull. And of course we're going to talk about this in detail later. So that was the skull. Next we're going to talk about the rib cage.